The Galactic Council's decree had been unanimous. After 3 centuries of integration, humanity was to be expelled from the Confederation. Too unpredictable, they said. Too emotional. Too willing to bend rules that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia. Jennifer stood at the viewing port of the Exodus ship Perseverance, watching the shimmer of 100,000 vessels preparing for departure. Her hand rested against the cool glass, fingers splayed as if reaching for the stars they were leaving behind. 300 years of history, of building, of friendship, all reduced to a single vote. "They'll regret this," Alex said quietly from behind her. He was checking supply manifests on his datapad, his jaw tight with suppressed anger. "Maybe." Jennifer's voice was soft, resigned. "But we're not going to give them the satisfaction of proving them right about us being volatile." The evacuation had taken 6 months, 6 months of humans packing up research stations, dismantling the schools they'd built, closing the hospitals where human doctors had saved countless alien lives. 6 months of saying goodbye to friends who'd protested the decision, but lacked the political power to change it. Jennifer remembered the Thex delegate who'd voted for their expulsion. She'd saved his daughter once, pulled her from a collapsed building after a maintenance failure on Station Kepler 442. He'd thanked her with tears in his 4 eyes, then voted to banish her entire species. "All ships report ready," Alex announced, his voice taking on the crisp efficiency that had made him one of humanity's best coordinators. "We leave in 1 hour." The Confederation continued without them. At first, the silence was barely noticeable. The Thex noticed it first on their industrial worlds. Production quotas began slipping. The ingenious workarounds that had always appeared when equipment failed, those small innovations that kept assembly lines moving, simply didn't materialize anymore. No one had realized those fixes came primarily from human engineers who saw problems as puzzles rather than insurmountable obstacles. The Krill medical centers struggled next. Their patient survival rates dropped by 17% in the first year. The emotional support protocols that human doctors had developed, the practice of sitting with dying patients, of explaining procedures with compassion rather than cold efficiency, those hadn't been formally documented. The Krill had dismissed them as unnecessary sentiment. Now their patients suffered longer, died more fearfully. On Velshara Prime, the Computational Research Center went dark. The breakthrough everyone had been anticipating, quantum processing that could predict solar storms months in advance, stalled completely. Dr. Jennifer Chen had been leading that project. The Velsharan scientists who inherited her work found meticulous notes, perfect calculations, but they couldn't replicate her intuitive leaps. She'd always claimed she felt when the numbers were right. They'd mocked her for it. Now they'd give anything for that inexplicable human instinct. Alex's agricultural programs collapsed slowly, like a plant dying from the roots. The crop rotation systems he'd designed for 17 worlds had seemed simple enough. But he'd factored in hundreds of subtle variables. Soil chemistry shifts, pollinator behavior, seasonal variations in solar radiation. He'd spent years on each world, walking the fields, talking to local farmers, integrating traditional knowledge with cutting-edge science. His replacement treated farming as pure data analysis. 3 worlds faced famine within 2 years. The art disappeared too, though no one had thought it mattered. Human musicians who'd performed at diplomatic functions. Human painters whose work had adorned government buildings. Human writers whose stories had been translated into 73 languages. The galaxy didn't realize how much human creativity had colored their culture until that color faded to gray. 5 years after the Exodus, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. "Trade routes are becoming increasingly dangerous," reported the Cathan delegate. "Piracy is up 43%. The informal peacekeeping networks have collapsed." The Thex ambassador shifted uncomfortably. Human traders served as neutral intermediaries. They had relationships with species on both sides of conflicts. Without them, The food crisis on Velshara's colonies cannot be ignored. Another delegate interrupted. We need to discuss reparations, aid packages. With what? The Krill representative's tone was bitter. Our medical costs have tripled. Our efficiency ratings have plummeted. The economic models aren't working anymore. In the silence that followed, truth settled like snow. Humans hadn't been the smartest species. The Velsharan could outcalculate them. They hadn't been the strongest. The Cathan were far more formidable warriors. They hadn't been the most technologically advanced. The Krill had invented faster-than-light travel, while humans were still discovering fire. But humans had been the bridge. The translators between pure logic and intuition, the mediators between ancient traditions and innovation, the ones who'd looked at complex problems and asked, but what if we tried something completely different? They'd been the galaxy's emotional intelligence, its creative spark, its stubborn refusal to accept that anything was impossible. Jennifer stood in the hydroponics bay of New Terra, the first planet humanity had colonized in their new sector. The tomatoes were doing well. So were the children playing in the compound outside, a mix of human and 3 other species who'd chosen exile rather than abandon their human friends. Message from the Confederation, Alex said, entering with a datapad. They're requesting consultation on several technical matters. Are they now? Jennifer smiled, a complicated expression mixing satisfaction with sadness. What did you tell them? That we'd consider it. Alex set the datapad aside and joined her at the window. We're not vindictive. We could help. We could, Jennifer agreed, but they need to understand what they lost. Really understand it. Not just that we were useful, but that we were people. That every human who left took irreplaceable relationships, knowledge, and love with them. Outside, the children's laughter drifted through the ventilation system. Human and alien, playing together without political calculations or voting blocks. They'll learn, Alex said quietly. The absent speaks louder than we ever could. Jennifer nodded, watching the twin suns set over their new world. Humanity had left the Confederation softly, without rage or destruction. But the holes they left behind were impossible to fill. And perhaps that was the most human thing of all, to be missed far more than anyone had anticipated.